I think of what her life must have been like living in Shreveport, Louisiana between 1933 and 1957. I think of that. Of course, that's the first 20 something years of her life. And what was going on living in the South, Jim Crow, the Great Migration, right? You would have the blacks living in the South that would move, they would leave, going up north, and then a lot of them coming to the West, which a lot of people forget about. When you hear stories of the Great Migration, you usually think New York, you think the North on the East Side. You usually don't think of Los Angeles, California. But no, they were coming here too. When you talk to most black people like myself living in LA, their roots go back to the South, whether it be a Tennessee, a Carolina, or the Carolinas, Louisiana, Texas, Alabama. The roots go back to the South. And so my grandmother coming out from Shreveport, Louisiana, very country. I've been there 3 times. And it's interesting to think about. And it's usually one family member will make the move first to check it out, if I'm not mistaken. And then other family members will follow. So basically, it was sort of a domino of family members that would make the move out. And eventually, all of them end up here. So all of my family on both sides, funny enough, because the same story applies to my father's side of the family coming from Memphis, Tennessee, the starting point, and then inching their way across, making pit stops in places like Chicago, and then eventually ending up here in LA. It's the same story. And this is all between the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. And then making the stumping ground here in mid-city Los Angeles, some parts of the South. From my father's side, it would be Hoover, right around there. From my mom's side, it would be mid-city, which had that move occurred about 9 years earlier, my grandmother would not have been allowed to live in mid-city because they had housing covenants here in Los Angeles that prevented melanated beings from living past Western Avenue. But those were lifted in 1948. Which is interesting because mid-city Los Angeles became the stomping ground for her memories and then my memories. I think of her working hard, working at a diner on Pico and Redondo. I actually saw this working in the kitchen. She actually burned her hand or burned her thumb and she put butter on it, which is an old Southern trick. I think of her working at the El Royale, which I did not witness. I think of her working at a laundromat right across the street from where I grew up on San Vicente and Hauser, which you've seen in the episodes of where I grew up. And the incident when I cut my hand, and I still have the scars. I don't know if you can see. There is a scar. I don't know if you can see it on this finger. It's barely there, but it's there. Sliced my hand up pretty good, playing with the gears in the back of the dryers that spin together. And I stuck my finger in between the gears, sliced it up, and she told me the full story that she actually prayed while she held on to my bleeding hand. I was bleeding profusely. And she said, "Lord, if you save my grandson's hand, I will serve you for the rest of my life." And this was back in 1980 or 1981. I was about 4 or 5 years old when this happened. I think of that. Oh man, so many memories. I lived with her 3 times throughout her life on 3 different occasions, with the third occasion being the longest, but the total, 37 years. 37 years lived with her. And I saw her in different phases of her life. I saw her in her early 40s, 50s, and then from the 60s all the way up to the 80s. And yeah, different phases of her life, you know. She was no nonsense. She was very straight, very straightforward. She didn't play around, especially in her 40s. It was interesting. And me being raised by 3 women, of course, the common stereotype within the Black human experience. My father was around, he played a role, But, the relationship between him and my mother didn't really work out. So most of the focus was from the three mamas, which is what I call them. You can check out the poem that I did on that. Um, so yeah, I've got valuable lessons from all three of them. But my grandmother gave me the nice polish. Valuable lessons from my aunt, valuable lessons from my mother, but my grandmother gave me the nice finish, the polish. And the biggest of those lessons was spirituality, the connection to God and the power of God. Because that hand incident was the power of God. Because to my understanding, I bled out a lot. It was life threatening. So that prayer that she gave, that she told me the story of, power of God, there it is. And so it's no mistake that 2 years after I moved in with her at the age of 19, then 20, then 21, 2 years after I moved in with her, I would transform and begin my journey with meditation. Now, of course, her Baptist Christian, which is pretty common for the Black human experience. She went to church every Sunday. But for me, total transformation. But it happened while living with her. There's no mistake in this. And I haven't looked back since. In fact, that was the smartest decision that I could have ever made in my life. There is no amount of meditation that will prepare you for losing a family member, or it's not a loss, but the transition from physical form to spiritual form. There's no amount of meditation that will prepare you for this. And I thought I was very prepared for it, but when it happened this year, it was a little rough. But I will say that if not for meditation, I would not have been able to handle this. Did I break down? Absolutely. 3 times. There was 1 week in early May. For that entire week in early May, I couldn't focus because I've recently started driving as a rideshare driver. And I'm behind the wheel driving passengers, picking them up, holding back tears. It was rough. And she transitioned April 6th. But this overwhelming amount of emotion didn't come out of me until the first week of May. So apparently it was literally building up like a volcano and just came out of me. But if not for meditation, I would not have been able to get through it. Meditation has guided me through all things rough. And so now I think about the lessons. I think about the things that she used to tell me because she didn't talk much. A lot of the lessons that I got from her were telepathic. I'm 100% convinced that she knew and understood telepathy. She didn't speak on it, but she knew it. There was an innate knowledge of it because she knew what was going on with me and she knew how to communicate that to me. And the spiritual component was very heavy, and it still is. She still communicates in bits and pieces, but it's definitely there. And she was the queen of one-liners. She was a woman who didn't speak much, old school, one-liners. Don't you worry about me. You just do what you got to do. I can never hate a man. All that rhetoric, so much rhetoric. Watch out for those fast-ass girls. Yeah. You talk about red pill. She red pilled me. I don't claim that, but I'm just saying for the sake of this discussion, because I know that's a constant conversation here on YouTube. But the queen of one-liners. She didn't like a whole lot of talking, and she would have made a very good cop. She always paid attention. She would watch family members and just enjoy. She was one who embraced the moment, being very present in the moment. She knew how to do that. She knew how to sit there and just enjoy what was happening, even if it was something bad. Even if it was something uncomfortable, she fully immersed herself in the moment. And she didn't really break. She didn't really break. I can count on maybe 7 fingers, 7 times in my life I've seen her break down. And that's very unique for a woman not to break, because women tend to be more emotional than men. But she didn't really break. And I saw this. And as a man, that's important. I'm being raised by a woman, not a man, mostly. And so that piece right there would be crucial for me as a man to see, oh, okay, even though she's a woman doing this, let me embrace that idea and apply it to my own life. Got it. The spiritual component, heavy. Doing what you got to do, working hard. She always did. She worked hard. And so you take that piece and put it in motion. She embraced everyone, even though she would watch you closely. She embraced everyone, especially Latinos, Mexicans. But she always made sure to embrace Blackness or the melanated experience, whatever you want to call it. She made sure to embrace that. That came first. She always gave me these calendars. I still have them. From the Angelus Funeral Home. This one is from 1999. Calendars talking about people succeeding within the Black human experience. You wanted me to know these people. And yeah, man. And we got along really, really well. And so just really smooth relations, my grandmother and I. And it was a very spiritual connection. It was a connection that was beyond physical. Because again, a lot of the knowledge that I got from her was telepathic. And so now she has transitioned. The energy has been released. I talk about this in episodes of the Strength Within series in terms of dealing with death. You may want to check that out. But now that it's been released, the idea is to put it in use, to take the energy that has been released and make use of it, because it is a powerful energy. And to honor her would be to expand on my existence. Honoring her existence by expanding on my own, because that's exactly what she would want when she used to tell me, don't you worry about me, you just do what you got to do. It's so interesting because I've never met a woman like her. And that's probably one of the reasons why I haven't gotten married yet, or in a long-term relationship beyond 2 years. Because if I don't come across a woman that has the recipe that my grandmother had, that woman is not going to be with me. And she knew that. She knew that. She was telling me in the 80s, watch out for those fast-ass girls. She knew this whole modern stuff that's going on right now. She knew. She knew it was coming. And she prepared me for it at the age of 7. There were a lot of things she prepped me for. But that spiritual component was definitely there. God was in her life. And never did she turn her back on God. Ever. Especially after that incident with my hand. And so that and drinking water every day, those were the consistent things. Well, I mean, there were others. She made sure to have 3 meals a day. And even though they weren't the best meals, a lot of salt and butter and grease. And, she's from the South, that, Southern cooking, But when I think back, the God component was forever present. And that is the recipe. That is the recipe for having the best life that you could possibly have. Without that, your life is full of confusion, doubt, fear. The human experience can only elevate through the alignment with the Most High. That's the biggest lesson that I took away from Flora Mae Robinson, my grandmother. And so now as I move forward, I must embody that even more. Even more. I've been doing it dating back to 1997 all the way till now, and I haven't turned my back. But now it's time to turn up the volume of that. To truly embrace this, use it, right? Because when you meditate and when you're in aligned with the Creator, you then adopt or you enhance your extraordinary abilities. I talk about this all the time on my channel. Flo Mae Robinson. I don't know. Maybe I'll name my daughter after her. Flora Mae.